I think I'm officially at the burnt out point.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing? My name is Jay Cameron for Maximum Impact, where we bridge the gap between Africa and the African diaspora. And so many people have shared with me this clip of Pastor Gailliard from Word Tabernacle Church, and he shared on a public video how he has hit a wall. And for those who don't know, I've spent 25 years in the church world and really understood a lot of what he was talking about. And just so you understand, because somebody said, well, why would you comment on this? Well, I'm very well versed in that world. I've done everything you can think of in a church. I've helped churches go from 0 people to thousands of people. I've been outreach coordinator. I've run the television department. I've run the sound department. I've done so many things, from cleaning the toilets, funerals, weddings. I mean, you name it, the whole nine, whatever you can think of, sweeping the floors, building bathrooms, name it. So when I was listening to the pastor speak, I understood a lot of where his frustration was coming from, because I've been on the inside of these conversations, and considering having spent much of my adult life in that world, I heard him loud and clearly. And then when the comments, when the video was running, I was able to read the comments, and there were some things missing in the comments. And that's what prompted me to say, well, it would be easy for me to just kind of say, oh, okay, yeah, it is what it is. Because in the comments, we're praying for you, take some time off, take a break. And I hear a lot of people who work in ministry say this, but then they get right back into the same system. And so for me, several years ago, when everything that he's going to share, I have felt, from in some capacity, whatever capacity I was working in. But when I heard him say this, it was like, you know what? Yeah, it's cool for everybody to say that they're going to pray for you and all of that. But if there are no practical steps to resolve this issue, then the issue will not be resolved, and he will hit this wall again, and this cycle will continue. And there are so many other people out here who think like what you're going to hear, who share many philosophies like what you're going to hear. But what I'm going to do is to break this thing down, and hopefully for someone who has an ear to hear, you will be able to hear the common sense, practical steps on how you can overcome this type of situation and live your life. Because it's too short. It's too short to be going through some of this stuff right here. But I would like for you to be able to hear what the pastor has to say in his own words and some of the solutions. And I want to thank him for putting this out there, because there are probably tens of thousands of pastors, white, black, all different ethnicities, that are dealing with what he's talking about. But because of a lot of the self-inflicted wounds, they won't get the help that they need. And so it was definitely a courageous move. And in no way is this to criticize him or anything, although I'm going to be very truthful. But this is not to criticize him or on any level. Hopefully he will get the help that he needs so that he can continue and live his life and live a fruitful life without the burdens that he's expressing. And notice I did not say so he could get back into the church and get back into all of that, so he could live his life. So I'm going to let him say it in his own words, and I will interject along the way.
So I've hit a wall. I think I'm officially at the burnt out point. My first job, I punched a time clock. It was my very first job in high school. I've been working since I was 14. And my first job, I punched a time clock. A whole lot of my first jobs, I punched time clock. And you punch, for my young people who don't know anything about that, it was a physical card and a machine, and you punched in when you got in, you punched out at lunch, you punched back in when you finished lunch, and you punched out when you left the day. And the cool thing about it was when you punched out, you could do whatever you wanted to do because you weren't on the clock. And I started the church, as you know, 17 years ago, and I feel like in December of 2004, I punched in, I clocked in. And 17 years later, I've yet to clock out. I've never, in my opinion, clocked out a single time in 17 years.
All right. Now that was very powerful for him to share that analogy, because I laughed because I remember using a little paper, you take it in the little clunk and it clunk and it, you go clunk. that was the time clock he was referring to. He's several years older than I am, but I do understand everything resonating, as far as the just that whole experience and all of that. But listen, nothing healthy runs nonstop for 17 years. You're not going to run a car nonstop for 17 years without it taking maintenance and taking a break. And even if we're going to talk about it from a scriptural standpoint, they're taking a quote unquote Sabbath, taking a break to disengage, to re-engage, to refuel. So if this is happening for 17 years, there's going to be a breakdown. There's going to be psychological breakdown, physical breakdown, because we're not built to be machines. So when I heard this, I understood it, because a lot of times when people get into what we're told to be ministry, we are told to become machines. And we're told, so it's like a dysfunction that many of us pick up along the way. And one has to wonder, and this was a thought as you'll hear more of the commentary as we go, one has to wonder how healthy the ministry is if the head of the ministry is dealing with this type of situation, and that's real. That's just a real statement. And sometimes people don't like to hear those types of real statements, but it's a real statement. And you have to wonder, how healthy is the ministry if this is what's taking place?
So I haven't been able to really be off or to clock out. And I've hit a wall. I'm tired. Pastoring is just hard. It's God's calling, but it's hard. And I have just notes because I don't want to miss anything, and I don't want to say anything that I shouldn't say. Pastoring in a pandemic is even harder because who knew what to do, and who knew how to really respond, and then pastoring through a construction project is even harder. And I think I had an illusion that 17 years in, it would just get easier. But it's not getting easier.
Well, he said a lot right there in that short clip. A lot was said right there. So we have, he's dealing with a construction project. And if anybody knows anything about construction projects, it can be overwhelming. I don't know what the terms of the construction project are, but clearly the fact that it was mentioned means that it's important. So now you have a construction project with a pandemic, and then the illusion of things somehow getting better 17 years later. Now, what this says to me as someone who is a systems person is that if the system is not adjusted, then the behaviors are going to be the same, meaning whatever those behaviors or systems or results are going to be the same. If it doesn't change from year one, then it's going to continue all the way until year 17 and beyond. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more because I really, I could care the deal. He could close that church down. My hope is that he's healthy because I can see and what I realized 4 or 5 years ago when I was in the midst of it, and I'm going to save some of this because I'm going to break this thing all the way down. I'm going to break it all the way down because there are people out there right now who are believing that they're doing something that is like biblical, but it's not biblical. It's not healthy. It doesn't make common sense. But when you get hooked on this stuff, it can get you, this is what it does. It takes you to this place. So, but just to kind of put this perspective, some of the stresses come from the construction project, this pandemic, which could have affected the money. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But then also this illusion of an expectation. So it's an illusion, but it was also an expectation. It was an expectation that things would get better and easier 17 years later. But now what's really happening is it's getting to be more difficult because, and there's a reason why, it's because now the energy is not there of 17 years ago. And perhaps even now when it comes to the ministry may or may not be as hot as what it used to be. So I'll keep expounding on this, but let's continue to learn a little bit more.
And so I pastor three kinds of people. I pastor people who work so hard to help take the weight off. So grateful for y'all. And then I pastor people who are weight. They're not trying to take the weight off. They want you to carry them. They're not, but that's okay because that's ministry. People come to church because they need help. I'm good with them. But it's the third group that makes it hard. And that's the group that hovers over the top of the people that are the weight, and they push the weight down. We got a lot of them. And for 17 years, like, I've been able to hold up the weight, even when people are pushing down. But something's kind of shifted for me, because for the first time, I don't feel like I can hold the weight anymore. And I always used to brag, and I know we shouldn't have a spirit of pride, but I'm just don't know who else to be other than honest. I used to be very proud for the fact that I had a lot of capacity. I'm good. I got capacity. I can handle this. I'm spent now. I don't have anything left. And because of that, for the first time in 22 years of pastoring, 17 years of being here, for the first time in my life, I'm scared. I'm afraid. Now, I want to be really clear. I did not say I have a spirit of fear. I said I'm afraid, and it's a difference. I'm scared because I don't know what the stress is doing to me that I don't know about. And so I'm scared because I'm changing. Like, I used to have good days and bad days. Now I just have days. And every day is I'm just numb. So I'm changing. And I wake up and I'm as tired as I was when I went to sleep because I feel like I spent the whole night fighting in my spirit. So I'm scared that, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have had a stroke in the middle of the night. Or I'm going to wake up and I would have had a heart attack, or I will wake up and I would not be able to talk anymore. And so I want to finish strong, y'all. And I don't think I'm done. I don't think God's done with me. But if I keep doing exactly like I'm doing, I feel like I'm not going to make it. And I feel like I'm not going to finish.
I want to thank him for being that honest with himself, to acknowledge his fears. And I heard him say that he does not have a spirit of fear. I heard that part. But I also heard the additional explanation. And I think that from listening to that, if you're that concerned about a stroke or a heart attack, it could lean in that direction of being fearful on a deeper level. Not saying that what you're saying is not accurate, but just saying hopefully you will look into that a little bit more. And it's nothing, you're human. That's the thing that I would suffice this to say. You're human. So even if you did have some of that extra going on, you are a human being and you don't owe those people jack of an explanation. All right, I just want to put that there. But here's a question I had. Are you carrying a weight you're not supposed to carry? Because as I'm hearing this, I'm hearing there's a grade, there's a pay grade where it stops. And sometimes what will happen, depending on the doctrinal influences within different ministries, it will have us and people believing, those who are in those capacities, will have people believing that they're supposed to do more than what they're supposed to do. I always go back to the old airplane analogy. They say, well, put your oxygen mask on first, because if your oxygen mask is not on, then how can you help somebody else? And so that's what, I'm listening to this and I'm saying to myself, again, how healthy can this ministry be if the sole leader is in this condition? And again, this is not, I'm just not referring to Pastor Gailliard's situation. I'm just talking about in general. When you think about anything, a business, a mosque, a church, a school, if the people who are leading it are this unhealthy, whether from an emotional standpoint, questioning whether or not from a physical standpoint, how healthy is that institution or organization? So that's a real question, and I feel comfortable being able to say that because it sounds like the pastor wants to get some things in order and get some things right. So that's a question to ask. And I believe internally he probably knows that, the condition of things right now, not the most healthy or the healthiest, condition. So that's a very good starting point. Very good starting point for himself. That's the thing, for himself. Not for. I'm gonna break down them church folks. I'm gonna break it down in a second, because once you begin to understand that there are just certain things you can't control, and it's not in your control, it's not supposed to be, then that helps to take the weight off. But if you believe that you're supposed to carry all of that weight, then there's nothing that's going to change it. Nothing. If you believe that you're supposed to do all of that, then that's what you're going to do. And the result is going to come from carrying weight that perhaps you're not supposed to carry.
And so the biggest issue is I don't heal fast anymore. Being a pastor means you gotta just be willing to take the shots. That's just part of the call. Folk come for you. They criticize you. They abuse you. That's the call, right? I'm used to that. The difference is I'm not healing as fast anymore. See, when I was a little boy, I was very athletic when I was younger, but I used to break bones. So my childhood, I probably broke stuff like 8 times. I broke both my thumbs. I broke both my wrists. I broke both my arms. But I healed fast. And the next season, I'm right back out there. Or a couple months later, I'm right back out there. That's the key to pastoral ministry. The key to pastoral ministry is that people beat you up all week long, but if you can just get to the pulpit healed on Sunday, you won't preach to them in your hurt. You won't beat them up with the microphone. So the key to this thing, to really love the congregation, is you gotta be purged by Sunday morning. I'm not healing anymore fast enough when Sunday comes. So I'm scared that I'm gonna start preaching from my wounds and not from my scars.
Again, this is really good. He's given a lot of insight into the mindset. He's really saying a lot. If you can read in between the lines, he's really saying a lot. But most people can't read in between the lines because they don't understand the capacity that he's at right now. And so they're listening from their capacity, which is fair, listening from that point. But I started hearing that again. I go back to the 17 years, and I go back to this thing where he was talking about getting well by Sunday morning. But if you never unplug to get well, then how well can you be? 17 years. And then also saying, well, I don't want to get to the point of preaching from my wounds, but you're probably likely already have been preaching from your wounds. And sometimes it's covered up. Sometimes wounds ooze different ways. Sometimes you have internal bleeding, a lot of different things going on. So there are a lot of things that I heard, but how do you purge weekly abuse every week? Because what I'm hearing is something that it sounds very dysfunctional. What I'm hearing is dysfunction. Who said you as a pastor are supposed to tolerate abuse? And then again, that goes to scriptural interpretation, which is individual. So if that is something that, somebody believes that I'm supposed to tolerate abuse, then this is what's going to happen. This is a system that's created. So it will never change. The people are not just going to change. Let me just break down some realities about people. People are very, and I think I'll wait for the next slide to say this. But just understand, people will look for a person that they can exploit and abuse. So if they sense that someone is in a position to be able to be punched, then those types of personalities are going to gravitate towards that person. They won't gravitate towards the person that steps to them and say, listen, if you're serious about this, then this is what we will not do. and step to them like that. But if there's this feeling of tolerating dysfunction and tolerating people's, basically absorbing people's unreconciled traumas, then that person who does that is never going to be well. Never going to be well if that is the system that they allow for themselves. I understand it because that is much of how the black church in America, and I'm just using that as an example because that's what I'm most familiar with, that's much of the doctrine that's been promoted. Tolerate people's foolishness. But then if you look in the scriptures say that people are supposed to get healed and get well. So is it just tolerating the foolishness, or are the people supposed to get well? I mean, do the people, the weighty people, I mean, I read the scriptures, and the people who were bringing all the drama and grief, they were dealt with too. So it's like, again, it goes back to doctrinal interpretation. And a lot of what I'm seeing and listening to right now is some of this stuff is self-inflicted. A lot of it's self-inflicted, but I'm glad to hear the brother bring this thing home, because he brings it home and he's talking about it. And it took a lot of courage to bring it out. And he's going to, I believe he'll do the steps in order to get things healed if he's willing to receive a level of truth that might be uncomfortable.
And there is a difference. When a wound is still bleeding, it's still pussy, it's still fresh. A scar has already healed up, and you can say, y'all, this is just what happened to me, but I'm good. You don't want to see anybody stand in front of you bleeding and pussy. But that's kind of the place I'm in. And so, because I want to finish strong, I got to do some things a little different. Y'all, we don't think of it like this, but nobody in this church has experienced more funerals than me. I'm not a hireling. I'm not some paid dude. And God called me, man, to love these people, commit my life to them. So you stand over these caskets week after week for years. These are people that you pray with and you hold hands and you laugh together. And they keep people that you've married, you blessed their children. You went to their home when they got it and you blessed their home or blessed their new business. And you tasked with having to lay your hands on that casket and say, it becomes my final task and assignment as their pastor to commit their body to the ground. Every time I bury a black man under 40, when I look in the casket, I don't see that black man, I see my son. But I got to get up here and I got to preach, man. I got to make sure people are good, because that's the calling. And I'm good with that. But I'm not healing as fast anymore.
All right. There was a lot there. There was a lot there. The question I have is, for him, how does he define love? So that's that part, because if love again is being a punching bag for somebody's drama, trauma, and all of that other kind of stuff, that is concerning, because therapists, you're not going to go to a therapist. When people go to therapists, a therapist is not going to tolerate somebody. There's written agreements. There's clear guidelines for conduct. There's an exchange of money. There's an understanding that, listen, I'm here to assist you if you want to get well. And I think when it comes to many churches, I don't know where this thing comes in, where just people come and just do whatever, and it's just whatever, and it's all good. It never resonated with me. And then when I woke up to that, I was like, wait a minute, there's something not right about this. Because these people don't go to their jobs and act the fool on their jobs because they know they'll lose that check. So, but what makes them, come to a church and just act the fool and it's like, oh, okay, just beat me up, just run me in the ground, just sacrifice my family and everything. That never made sense to me, because you don't see it anywhere in the Bible where that level of dysfunction is tolerated. But people can twist it. They can read it and interpret it a particular way. And if that's what they interpret, then that's what ends up happening. So again, it goes back to personal interpretation and philosophy. And then the question I had is the calling for you to make sure that people are good or simply deliver the message? I mean, I've watched pastors run themselves into the ground. I mean, run themselves into the ground, nearly having strokes and heart attacks and killing themselves because of, and a lot of times that goes back to a dysfunction within them, because they're feeling as though these people need me. These people are not going to be okay if I'm not here to help them. I've been called to do this by God, and they might have read a scripture a particular way and interpret it to mean that this is what I'm supposed to do. And these people, if I don't do it like this, then God is not going to be pleased. And what I've realized, and just watching this over the years, is that these people will go from place to place. They will not be thinking about that, Pastor so-and-so will be dead and gone, and then they'll cry at the funeral, and then they'll just run over to Pastor so-and-so church and drive Pastor so-and-so crazy. I mean, I've seen it happen so many times over 25 years that you're just kind of like, for many people, this is a game. And it's a game of wasting people's time instead of them really trying to work out whatever issues they need to work out. They have this vicious game, and they find people that they can do that with. I mean, I was in that mindset for a long time. This is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm serving the people, and I'm just supposed to tolerate whatever. And then you sit there and you try to have a common sense conversation with them, and they come back with that jive, and you're just like, well, wait a minute now. But they don't do that. It's like people know how to act when they're supposed to act a particular way. And so, again, I appreciate the pastor for sharing this, because most people don't have this kind of conversation from a common sense perspective without a whole lot of religiosity floating around up in it. Because then once you start tying like toxic religion in it, and then because some things people do just don't make sense. They'll quote something, it's like, that does not even make sense. Let's just be practical. Let's just have a common sense conversation. And then if you want to take it and make it something else, then that's up to you. But just let's look at this from a common sense perspective. And that's how I'm delivering this, because I could deliver this like in a very religious way and make it sound a particular way, but it's not. Let's just have a common sense conversation, because sometimes it just takes a little bit of common sense for people to say, wait a minute, I wouldn't tolerate that in this particular context. And then a lot of people sacrifice their families, and oh man, and they just believe that they're, because this is the other thing. Just because we believe something does not mean that it is so. Just because we believe it, we believe that the sky is green. That doesn't mean the sky is green. It just doesn't mean it because we believe it. But we'll get into that a little bit more. Check this out.
And so, because I'm not healing as fast, I'm spending a lot of time just in my feelings and not in my spirit man, where I know I need to minister to people from. So I need a minute to figure out how I keep pastoring the people that keep holding the weight down. Because I'm called to pastor them the same I am to pastor the people that hold up, that help with the weight. I don't get to pick and choose who I pray for. And I don't get to pick and choose who I minister to. And I don't get to pick and choose who I love. The only thing I can choose right now is, how do I stay as healthy as possible to keep letting them beat me? That's the call. They're not going to stop beating on me. The issue is, how do I stay healthy enough to take the whooping? And I need to figure that out. And so I got to figure out how I handle my feelings. And I want to be really clear. They're my feelings. This is not about, I'm not saying you're doing it, or these are my feelings. But I got to figure out how I handle my feelings, that my critics won't shut up and my supporters won't speak up. I got to figure out how I handle that. I got to figure out how I handle people nodding, smiling, and I know in my spirit, because the Holy Ghost has told me that they're not for me.
All right. Whew. There was a lot. There was a lot right there. There was a lot. Again, this goes back to personal philosophy and personal interpretation and personal doctrines and all of that. The question I had is, are you sure you're supposed to pastor the so-called weighty people that are putting on the weight? Are you supposed to pastor everyone? Now, and then it kind of got a little convoluted, because it was like, well, you can still pray for someone and love someone, but not necessarily pastor them. It doesn't mean... I don't know, but if that's what he believes, then that's what he believes. Again, he's talking about being spent, talking about being burnt out, talking about hitting a wall. Well, the system is going to have to change. That's bottom line. The system, his personal system, is going to have to change. And then the other system is going to have to change. And then some of those so-called toxic, weighty people are going to need to go. I mean, that's the bottom line. There's no way around this. Either their attitude is going to have to change, his attitude is going to have to change, or there's going to need to be a separation, because it's not healthy for either one if all of this is going on. Here's the next thing. Can you really stay healthy to take the beatings alone? When I heard that, I was like, I was like, no. Now that's me. This is me. Now this is just me. I'm not him. I'm not in his church. I'm not, but common sense says, how long can you take beatings and continue to do this and have joy? Because other aspects of life must be suffering if this level of depletion, spiritual and physical depletion, is taking place. Emotional depletion. Other areas of life have to be suffering because of that. And this is what he's saying he sensed. Another part of it is people are going to be people. So any leadership capacity, the pastor of a church, it doesn't matter. Any leadership capacity, you're going to have to take the shots because you're the head of it. And I know people who don't go to anybody's church and they run magnificent businesses because they approach it from a very practical standpoint and they do not tolerate certain things. Fortune 500 companies run a particular way and they don't tolerate certain things. They have policies in place, code of conduct, ethics, all these different things in order to make sure they have a company culture that is conducive to what their mission is. So when I think about this, I wonder to myself, I said, well, what is the culture of this particular church? Again, if all of this is occurring, what is the culture of this church? What is really happening behind the scenes? Now, again, in the comment feed, pastor, we praying for you. And y'all know how religious people do. We praying for you. Somebody might drop a little something in there, send a little card, send a letter. That's the ones who care. But the ones who don't care, they'll, pastor, we praying for you. And they'll be the main ones giving you hell. And I tell you, if you got somebody giving that much hell, get them the hell up out of there. That's the real deal. If it's that much going on, then why, in this whole thing about we have to do it and now we got to do this, that, and the other. There are 1,000,001 churches out there that people can go to, and they can go take that hell to somebody else who might step to them and say, look, or they might end up staying at home. They got all the options online now. They can watch. It's all kind of things. So that's what I'm saying. Don't kill yourself, brother, doing this thing. It's just that don't kill yourself with this stuff. It's not worth it. I'm telling you, it's not worth it. Because these Negroes going to go on and live their life. You'll be over there stressing out, and these Negroes going to go live their life. So go you live your life. It's okay. It's nothing wrong to be guilty about. Go live your life. All right, let me keep going, because y'all know we'll go in on this. You know it's coming. Not on the brother, but just on the whole system of it all, because it's so daggone toxic at times. And a lot of it is self-inflicted. I've seen it over 25 years, some of the stories I could tell you, but I won't belabor that point tonight.
And the stress of it is theological for me. It's a spiritual fight. It's nobody at all would look down on me because I would have said, well, Buddha is not Jesus. And I know we got somebody who wants to work with kids, or somebody who wants to play, or somebody who wants to be on staff, or somebody who wants to lead a ministry, but they think Buddha is Jesus. And we got standards here. And I'm not willing to relax the standard. I'm not willing to compromise our convictions. And so there are things that happen every day that stress me because they are forcing me to compromise my convictions. And I can't do that. And so for the hope of not offending members and for the hope of appeasing people's feelings and emotions, I try to just hold it all in. And now it's got me to a point where I can't heal from it anymore.
Again, I appreciate the brother sharing, because you typically don't get to hear people in this capacity, in any leadership capacity, breaking it down like this. And he's really not at a position of being weak. He's actually up to this point, expressing, from what I can hear, a level of humility. So this is it's deeper than as he's saying it, he's being vulnerable because he's put himself out here on a public platform. I mean, he has this, somebody analyzing his video, which I hope that he does not perceive as being an attack on him in any way. So, bruh, if you're watching this, or your supporters or whatever, you'll hear how I round this out to understand this is by no means an attack on you or what you're doing or anything like that. I just am someone who has a lot of experience in this particular world in so many different capacities, and just trying to offer a different perspective because I didn't see anybody really offering this perspective from the inside. And I know, like church people, well, you should call him directly and you should have a conversation with him and all that. You know how they do. Well, he put it out there publicly. That's bottom line. So it's a public forum, and clearly when you put it out there publicly, you understand that there's an opportunity for people to have a commentary. If he would like to talk to me, no problem. I have no problem at all. But I'm busy. All right. So I'm taking the time to do this to share it with as many people who might be in this particular position. I'd have one conversation with him, but there are thousands of people working in ministry that need to hear exactly what I'm saying. And so that's why I do it like that. So for that person who's got your panties in your bunch, then you can go pull them out and go sit down somewhere. And then, I don't have a problem saying it like that. So I'm not, I ain't tripping. I'll say it exactly how it needs to be said for people who, have these weird things going on. So, but when you were talking, the brother was talking, he talked about the theology. And again, that's where so much of this thing goes back to, because people and their theology get things it gets convoluted. Then the people pleasing and the appeasing people's feelings and all of that, that's bondage. I'm going to use some of the terms. That's bondage right there. Because if you even go into the scriptures, they weren't concerned about, if you go back and look at the prophets in the Old Testament, they weren't concerned about the people's feelings so much. I mean, it might have been expressed or whatever, but they did what they had to do. If you go and you look at when, in the scriptures, you look at the disciples and how the disciples had to walk around. They had to deal with people and all kinds of feelings and all kinds of foolishness and all types of things going on. So understanding that these people are going to do and be and whatever they're going to do, man, that's just what it is. I mean, if you ran a multi-trillion-dollar business, you would have to deal with this. But what my concern is that in dealing with this, see when you start looking at people who like run these businesses, they don't go, they deal with the stress, but they work hard and they play just as hard, many of them. So they have outlets, and some of them are healthy, some of them are not. I got you. But they have an outlet. And so my encouragement for so many people who work in ministry, and it's not just pastors, I mean, because that's what I'm saying, you're working, you're doing all kinds of things. And if you're not careful, the ministry will consume your life and you'll be doing the will of God, or thinking you're doing the will of God, and just really not. It's just you're just kind of flowing and existing. But the people pleasing and the appeasing people's feelings, one of the lessons that I had to learn in over these years is to I'm trying to decide about it. Yeah, sometimes, Pastor, sometimes what you got to do This is real. This is real. And I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this from my heart. Sometimes, Pastor, you got to look at the people square in the face. And I know you're not gonna feel this because it's gonna feel some kind of way, but you're feeling it already on the inside. You're already saying this on the inside. So I'm gonna say it for you. Sometimes you got to look at the people and say, I don't give a even if you think I should. I don't give up. And, and that's going to mess them up. Now, hey, however you say it, I don't necessarily recommend that you say all of how they say it in that little video or whatever. But sometimes you got to say, look, I'm not going to deal with your foolishness. And it's time for you to grow up. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman. You got all this drama. You acting like a teenager. You got all of this happening. Where is this going to go? When are you going to finally going to grow up? Sometimes you got to say that to people. I've said that to people, and of course they didn't like me and did all that. But you got people doing all types of underhanded, behind the scenes stuff, and you know that already. You know that the Holy Spirit didn't have to tell you that. You're just dealing with Nick Rose. You know what's going on. You're doing it for 17 years. You know what you're dealing with. It's like you're doing it for 17 years. You know what you're dealing with. So instead of trying to walk it down. Now, when you're in the middle of a building project, you ain't trying to mess that money up too much. That's the other part. You're in the middle of a building project. Now you feel trapped. Now you're like, oh Lord, I want to say, I don't give up. And you can't say that because now that might be one of your largest contributors to help you get over this hump. So I don't know all the details of the loans and if there are any loans or whatever, but I get it. I just wanted to try to put that in perspective because a lot of people don't understand that. You doing a building project, you got $3, $4, $5 million, $10 million or whatever it is, and you have a large donor who is the one bringing all the weight, giving all the hell that you can think of. And now you're like, okay, and then it's an influential person, and then that person wants to bring all the drama and bring all the heat and all of that, and you got that going on. I mean, like some of my friends have built $60, $70 million churches and stuff like that. So I get the inside scoop on how this thing goes down, and they tell me that people come to their office and act a fool and all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, I can't do that. I'd end up knocking somebody out. Be like, man, what you talking about? Come up in here acting like this. I'd lay hands. So I'm just saying, and I'm not encouraging this, but I'm just trying to put this in perspective that people are human. And then what ends up the expectation, a lot of times the expectations in ministry is that people are not supposed to be human. So if you have a human moment, now they're looking at you all sideways, but yet they can still act a fool and do whatever they want to do and do all this, that, together. So that's why I'm saying, just kind of put it in perspective. I'm looking at some, another thing to wonder is like, what are the expectations on both sides? Because again, if there are expectations on both sides, maybe that's a good conversation. But let's let the pastor say a little bit more.
It don't seem like a big deal to y'all, but when people don't serve, like that stresses me. Like, because theologically, I believe that saved people serve. I believe that theologically. I believe that biblically. So when members don't serve, it's like you're trying to force your theology on me as the theologian of the house. I don't think that's right, because Buddha is not Jesus. And I thought y'all called me here to be the theologian of the house. So it doesn't seem like a big deal to look to a room full of people who don't love God enough to serve him, but it's a big deal to me. It may not be a big deal to you that half the church doesn't give. Theologically, I believe that you cannot love God if you don't give. I just believe that theologically. Buddha isn't Jesus for me. For God so loved the world, he gave. People who love, give. And no, you do not love the ministry if you don't give. And you got to stop trying to force me to believe that, because I don't believe that. Where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. God is clear. Your heart is never somewhere where your treasure is not.
Oh boy, boy. This is where I think the core essence of what this whole message might have been about. to. Because when this is, again, I've heard this over 25 years, said some of this stuff myself. Lord have mercy, forgive me. It's you, when you get in a situation when you have to raise money and you have to do different things and the pressure's on and you're looking out there and you're watching people and you have an expectation as a leader. And really the expectation a lot of times is that if someone says they're going to be a part of something, they agree that they're going to give towards something, and they don't do it, then there's a disappointment. If there's now, the question I ask is, just because he believes it as such to be, he believes that it is a particular thing, don't mean nothing. That don't mean nothing to somebody. And because he was talking about how they try to project on him their theology, but in essence, I'm seeing it a little bit differently, like perhaps he's trying to project on them his theology because he believes he is the theologian of the house. Then my question goes to, where did that come from? Where did that thinking come from? Where can you justify that particular mindset in Scripture to say this is that my perception of theology is what you all should follow? Now, again, it goes back to perception. And I think once everyone understands that interpretation is just like a mouth and a you-know-what, that everybody has one. And so one person's interpretation of theology could be very different. But to say that people don't love God because they don't serve and give, that's a stretch. That's a strong arm tactic. That's a guilt tactic. It might not be intentional, but that's what happens in these churches. They go and they strong arm the people and they tell the people, you know what, if you're not giving, you don't love the ministry, I don't believe it. And you know what, the people probably don't. So get ready for that. They don't. So what you gonna do if they don't? So what you gonna do? That's the question. What you gonna do if they don't love the ministry? What you gonna do? So you can't go into their pockets now. Some people try to do that with the tithe, taking their income statements and all that foolishness and trying to get there, see how much they're making each month. And I tell people all the time, if you go into church and doing that, then if you're giving your W-2 to the people and all your bank statements to these churches and stuff, for what? Who are these people? Who are these people? Nobody. I mean, in the overall scheme, I'm switching a little bit here. Who are these people that they have the right to be in your bank account and all of that? So that's why it's important for people to just kind of use common sense. Say, all right. So I say to the pastor, just because you believe it doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't mean that other people believe it. And if you feel that strongly, then you're going to be disappointed because the people are going to tell you by how they give, how they feel about the ministry. Now, but some people are dealing with financial challenges, and many churches don't go and teach the people anything about financial literacy to be able to prepare them to be able to give. So they say, come to church and then hit them with giving. But then they don't train them with financial literacy that they can find many of the principles in the Bible. They might do a little financial peace course every now and then or whatever, but they won't do it. It's not a part of the culture. So you're taking people who weren't trained in school with financial literacy, and then now all of a sudden they're getting taxed to death. The tax is taken by the time they pay gas, tax on their gas, tax on their groceries, personal income tax, inflation and all of that. And then now the church is asking for them to give 10% on top of it. These people are going to be broke. I mean, now let me say this. They do find their entertainment and everything else, but I'm just saying it would be wise to employ a different strategy to say, okay, let me train you, let me teach you, let me show you how to manage these resources so giving might not be stressful, or it might be a joy because they're getting something out of the investment. A lot of times people give to churches and they get nothing back, and they should get a return on their investment. It's like, just give us all your money and then that's it. Just give us your money and there's no type of benefit or nothing for the people. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So again, but it goes back to each person's conviction, their theology, what they believe. And just because somebody believes it doesn't make it so, because they could be misinterpreting something, and it goes a lot deeper than that. So the question I had, could you be forcing your theology on the people? That's what I heard. I heard like it was real smooth. Again, being in the back rooms, I know how this stuff goes. That was real smooth, like a little subtle guilt trip. But the people are passive aggressive, so they just won't give, or they might give a little bit this week and then they won't give again. And then what is your definition of serving? Is it serving on the ushers ministry? Is it serving on the I don't know. What is the definition of serving? What would be enough to prove that these people love God in the ministry? See, that's what I'm saying. What's enough? And then that's when it goes back to human interpretation, human projection, human expectations, just a whole lot of humanity in there. And it's like, well, just because I feel like it. And now, so this is a way to take the stress off. This is how you take the stress off. Because, like, man, you know what these people going to do? Again, you've been doing this for 17 years. You know people don't give like that. And it's probably not even half the church. So you already know what time it is. 17 years, you done seen them offering numbers go up and down, know what it's like at the beginning of the year, know what it's like around tax time, know how it takes to dip during the summertime unless you do something intentional to keep it up, know how you got to beat the drum right around the holidays to make sure it doesn't fall off, because now the world is coming to get its money around them pseudo holidays and all of that. Come on now, you know, come on, who? I'm just, hey, bro, just trying to put a little perspective on this thing, But I do appreciate you sharing this, because again, a lot of people don't even know. But again, if you change the expectations, then things will likely be better on your end to change expectations. Just know what you're dealing with. Hello, you already know what you're dealing with. And here's the next clip.
Have you ever gone to a wedding and as the bride walked down the aisle on her special day, people started speaking and they started saying stuff while she walked down the aisle? Them shoes don't match that gown. And she hears it. How you wearing white and you had 3 kids already? People hear it. You've been with 3 people, you whore. They hear it. It's her special day. Look at all this weight you gained. It's her special day. And for the invited guests, run her out of her own wedding. Pastor, what does that have to do with anything? When people slander the church, belittle the church is the bride of Jesus. It's Jesus' bride. You've never once been to a wedding where anyone did that to the bride. But we do it to the bride of Jesus. And to make it worse or as bad, what is the bride of Jesus? The church. Who's the church? It's the body, the gathered body of us. Us, we're the church. So every time somebody slanders the bride, they slander the body. That means every time you take a shot at the bride, you take a shot at every member. You take a shot at the pastor. You take a shot at all of us. And so I just need a minute. I'm used to people doing it. I'm just not healing as fast because I'm spending so much time doing everything else that I need to spend some time with God so that I'm strong enough spiritually to take the fight. And so I'm going to do some things in the month of March to do this. I'm going to get a physical because I'm behind in my physical. And I got to do some things to make sure I'm healthy physically and emotionally. I'm going to start an exercise routine. I'm going to spend some time, some deeper time in devotion. I'm not preaching at all in March. And so our staff, our ministers will preach. Bishop Daniel will preach our anniversary. I won't be here. I'm going to come out Tuesday night at 7 p.m. I'm going to teach Bible study. And you may wonder, why would you do that? Because that's the one thing that's life-giving for me. So I'm going to come out here Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I'm going to teach the word. I have a wedding that was already on my schedule for this month. I'm going to honor my commitment as a pastor. I committed to preaching a citywide men's service in Goldsboro on March 13th in the afternoon. I'm going to commit to that. I'm going to do some things politically because, quite frankly, it's not stressful for me. It's an outlet. But I got to spend March figuring out how I handle the people that don't love the church, don't serve the church, don't give to the church, because I got to pastor those folk. And so I hope y'all can hear my heart on this. I want to finish strong. There's so much more I believe God has for us to do. But I think if I keep trying to do it in my emotional state, I really think the stress is going to kill me. And so I need to get my head around that, my heart around that. So you won't see me a lot in March. I hope y'all will serve. I hope y'all be faithful. I hope you'll give. I hope you'll support our ministers, Bishop Daniel, Pastor Stephanie, Pastor Kyle, Minister Flowers. They're going to be the 4 preachers this month. And then I'm going to figure out what it looks like as we move forward. And then it's going to look different because I want to live. I don't want to die yet. I don't want to have a heart attack. I want to live. And so because of that, I want to take the moment I need. And so...
and brother, we want you to live too. That's the bottom line. We want you to live. And I will tell you like this. There's no church, there's no ministry, there's no nothing out here worth you losing your life over. And that could be emotional life, that could be physical life. It's not worth it. So, a couple questions. What is a shot? What is taking a shot at the ministry? Is it criticized? Because sometimes we take things personally where somebody offers a constructive criticism, we take it as a shot. Or if somebody has something to say or question something that we do, we take it as a shot. Again, when it comes to this religious system, especially this modern religious system, it's deep. And I asked a question to a lot of pastors, where can you find this, the way that these modern religious systems are set up in the Christian church? Where can you find that system? Hear what I'm saying clearly. Where can you find the modern religious system in the scriptures that says that the pastor is supposed to carry all of this weight? So a lot of the things that are happening, a lot of the stresses that people are going through are simply just not in the manual that everyone claims to be reading from. You will not find this hierarchical system in the scriptures. So when you are doing this, a man-made created system of dysfunction. And so if you have it to where, because I heard at the end of that, where he was concerned, he was like, I hope y'all still give. I hope y'all still come. I hope y'all support these ministers and all of that. So that spoke to me as a potential dysfunction within the ministry of it being personality driven, as one of the popular books out there talked about. Because if the pastor can't take some time off, as much time off as needed, and the ministry can't keep functioning and the people stop giving, that's already an indication of how this is going to end. Because if that is the case, then there needs to be a succession plan, because most churches out here don't have a strong, or many, let me not say most, because I don't know most, but many churches don't have a strong succession plan for people. So so a lot of these churches are just a mess. I'm not saying that this church is, I'm just saying that a lot of churches out here are a mess. So then the next question I have is the church, the collective church, or just this church? Because if they're taking a shot, the bride, and I've heard all of these scriptures before, the treasure where your heart is, does that mean money? What does it mean? Is this interpretation again? Here we go. What does it mean when we talk about the collective church and the bride of Christ, and if people don't love? The thing I learned long ago is you can't, if they don't love it, they don't love it. Even so with Jesus, we go to the scriptures, he didn't heal everybody. There was a time where he withdrew and they were coming to get healed. And he went across and he went to go retreat. And he was like, man, we're going to be all right. And he didn't heal everyone. See, so that's why I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, I said, even the manual gives a different instruction than how many of us are behaving, but yet we're trying to figure out what's going on because we've adopted an interpretation from something that what I'm learning, and this is what I've learned over the past 4 or 5 years, is that much of what we're doing you won't find in the scriptures, but we modify it and we make it fit and we do all these different things to try to make it work. and it leads to tremendous disappointment. I hear it time and time again. Here's the next thing. 17 years nonstop might need more than a little bit of a month off. Might need a little bit more than that. Might need 17 months off or an extended period of time off. I'll never forget the time there's this pastor, local pastor out in Virginia, and he talked about how he was burned out and how he was taking some time off. And I just said to myself, I said, if he goes back into the same system, then he's going to be back here again. Or a lot of times what pastors will do is they will mask it and they'll function into dysfunction because they're responsible for a system. So they say, well, I can't quit because if I quit, then it all collapses. So they're dealing with the pressures of that. I'm telling you, it's happening all over the place. But what I would encourage this brother to do is to take off more than a month and really take off and not teach Bible study and to go get some therapy, to go talk to someone. And another question I have is, who pastors the pastor? Who pastors the pastor? So who's the pastor's pastor? Since if we're going to be in that kind of system, who's the pastor's pastor? Oftentimes there is no pastor's pastor. Again, 25 years, I've seen a whole lot. And what we discover is that everyone is human. I have yet to meet one human being that has it all together. I meet a lot of people who act like they have it all together, especially in religious environments. But then when you get to the core of the person, they're struggling just like the next person. But because we're in systems that don't even allow for the leaders to be able to take a break and to be able to get healed and to get well and all of that, then you begin to see this cycle. It's a culture where people are dealing with this stuff in silence. And then when it all comes to a head, you're like, well, what happened? What happened? What's going on? Oh, man, I never knew there was such a wonderful person. So here's the reality is everybody is dealing with something. That's the one thing. As I've gotten older, I realize everybody's dealing with something. And what toxic religion will do will have people performing and acting like they're well, but they're really not well. And they're afraid to talk about it because then they're going to deal with the ridicule and what people are going to say and all of that. That's why I applaud this brother for coming out and saying, man, look, this is what I'm dealing with. Now, I got some question marks in here, especially when it got around that money and that serving and all that and the people's relationship with God. And, bro, you might want to leave that alone because you can't judge what these people's relationship with God is like in their circumstances. So that's just something I would encourage you to kind of lean back on a little bit because you just don't know, you don't know. And of course, and everybody's not going to give to your church. It's just, that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. It is what it is. And you might get a little bit of guilt money for a little while. People might say, oh, Lord, Pastor, I ain't been getting my tithes in so long, Lord. And you might get 10 G's. Somebody, there are ways to work that money for a hot second, But people are wisening up and they're able to kind of see through these things a little bit more. And I'm not saying that you did anything intentional. I'm just saying that's when the question marks started coming in. And the pressure is there. I get it. I've worked on building campaigns. I know what that's all about. I get what you're saying. But that's something I would definitely say, just kind of be mindful of that thing. That's all, because people will peep that and they'll say, nah, I ain't giving nothing. But, or create a system where the people can learn. Here's another thing. If people are that toxic, send them on their way. I'm trying to tell you. Without going too deep into my story and all of that, when I finally woke up and I said, well, I can't, you're in your mind, you say all the words in your mind. And I was like, you know what? These jokers out here living their life. They're living their best life. They're traveling all around the world. I'm held up working in this ministry, that ministry, doing this, that, and the other. And then I finally woke up and I said to myself, I do not want my story to end like that, or that. And I'm going to live my life. And I can still help people, and I can choose the people who I want to work with. I can do that. If I choose not to deal with toxic people or someone I deem to be toxic, or they might deem me to be toxic, so we don't need to be around each other either way, then I can do that. And I feel no guilt or anything. And what I discovered is that now what I'm doing now is much more fulfilling than anything that I could do in one of these systems that, and without getting all into that too much more fulfilling and leading people and still using the same gifts and talents and all those different things. It's not so much in a religious context, but it's in a context where I'm still helping people to be able to see and experience life on a different level. And so I take all of those years of experience and use them today. And I don't have that type of drama going on. I don't have that type of stress. And I can choose when the toxicity comes, am I going to deal with this? Why? Because life is too short. Life is too short. Life is too short. And when you're in your grave, then people are gonna be like crying, and then they're gonna go over to Bishop so-and-so church and live their life, and they'll talk about you, and every, so-and-so, they'll name a memorial after you and all of that, and they will go on with their life and could care less. That is the reality. Could give a rat's what about you, your family, what you're dealing with, all of that. 99% of the people could care less. And that's just the reality. And it is what it is. But it's okay to live. And like I said, 99% won't care. So once you understand that, then you can approach you can't want it more for them if that's what you believe, but you can't want it more for somebody than what they want for themselves. And then you carrying that burden on your shoulders and, oh, Lord, no, man, let them jokers go on and live their life. As a matter of fact, someone told me many years ago, God will take care of his children. So get out of the way of the Lord. Get out of the way of the Holy Ghost. Get out the way. Again, here's the next thing right here. Worry less about opinions. Don't worry about it. Go get some therapy. Go talk to somebody about what's going on. Don't try to figure it out. You're going to sit there and trying to figure it out. Go talk to someone who's qualified. And I would suggest not talking to talk to someone who's not religious. Just somebody who got some common, just practical, just give it to you straight. Because clearly the religion is all there. The religion is embedded. So let the religion go and do what it's going to do. But talk to someone who's really neutral and can say, hey, is this healthy? Let's look at this from a different set of eyes. And because sometimes we get in that religious bubble and the only people we talk to are religious and that's all they know. And then they're not qualified really. And then maybe they have an interpretation that might be off or whatever. That's just a suggestion. I'm just trying to, just kind of give you a suggestion here. And then create a system where you can have a life. And get minister so-and-so up there and just pastor so-and-so and get that rotation going. And maybe you go to preaching twice a month and do your Bible studies or something and then go on from there and live your life, man. Go travel, go see the world. Go enjoy, let the life come back in you. You know what I'm saying? So if what you were saying is sincere, and I felt that it was sincere. If it's sincere, because sometimes we can get sincere when that money get real tight and get real funny. We can get emotional and all that kind of stuff because it's like, Lord, we got the money. Oh God, I got to figure out something. But if you're sincere about this thing, man, all you got to do is you create a system for yourself and don't feel any guilt about living your daggone life. I think you said, like 50-something odd years old, man, time it'll be over before you know it. You'll be like, man, 80 years old talking about, man, I done sat up here and served all these people and the people don't love God and all of that. Once you realize that this is just how, don't waste these years. That's all I got to say. You got 17 in the game or 22 in the game or whatever. Today is the day you say, all right, let me go live my daggone life and do this thing, because the reality is, they don't give a even if you think they should. So they don't care. And I'm not suggesting that you don't care. I'm just saying I suggest that you care more about yourself. And, what the scripture say, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, you got to love yourself. And when you love yourself, an interesting thing begins to happen, because now you're in a position to be able to serve and equip and all of that. So I'll leave it with this. Question is, who pastors the pastor? I didn't get the part about Buddha and Jesus. It sounded like it was kind of blended in between. It was like serving and giving, but it sounded like there might be somebody who's trying to get y'all to go into Buddhism and Jesus. So, if y'all are Jesus church, then you can't do Buddhism. And if it's a Buddhism church, you ain't going to be doing Jesus. If it's a Allah church, you're not going to be doing Jesus. So, that's just a systemic thing right there that somebody should be able to understand. I don't know how they can try to force it. And I don't know why somebody would try to force you to convince you that they love the church and they don't want to support the church. I don't know. I don't know what the forcing part. I was trying to piece that together about the forcing. Yeah, I think this is it. This is it. So again, this is for anybody who's out there working in these different ministries and stuff. I encourage everybody to really do a history, do a real study on the black church and the Western church, in America, because what you will discover is that much of what we do is nowhere found in Scripture, or it's modified, or it's something that people have made up. That's why you have so many different denominations and so many different churches, because people believe so many different things. So I'm just encouraging everybody to make sure that we don't get caught up in, doing something that's not even a part of what we're saying that we're supposed to be doing. I mean, I guess I'm just going back and I'm saying that. I know that as I've traveled the world, I take people to Africa, so to give them exposure, not for them to do a missions trip or take anything over to them, because they got all of what we have, so that's not what's needed. But I take people who are interested in learning about the connection between Africa and the African diaspora, so that it's really a form of therapy. A lot of people go and it's therapeutic because they're able to learn and connect a lot of the different dots, and they're not afraid of it because they're understanding that part of the story that we've been told has been so distorted and twisted that it's not accurate, and they're starting to search. And so I encourage the Pastor Gailliard, if he hasn't done, go visit the continent without a missions trip. That's what I'm saying. Everybody want to tell me missions trip. Like, don't go on a missions trip. Go for your personal missions trip so you can go learn something. Because what you might discover is that what you're taking over there, one, they already have. Two, they might not need. So they might not need this system that we're talking about right here with all of the dysfunction that we're talking about. They might not need that over there, even though they have it, but they might not need it. And so for many of us, we need to go get well. We need to go understand what's happening. We need to go get the therapy that we need from just the exposure of learning something different. So anyway, that's all I have to say on that particular topic. I hope for anybody who's involved in ministry that you go back through, watch this, share this, make sure that other people see it, because it's very valid information that a lot of people will not share. Again, this is, since the brother put it out there, it is able to be, in this particular context, a free, fair use vehicle. We have offered commentary to go along with it, to be able to, in constructive ideas and education that have accompanied this. And so, again, we're not here to try to disparage him in any way, simply taking what the content was on public platforms, on social media, and being able to use it in this setting so other people would have an opportunity to learn from it. So again, I hope that the brother works everything out. I'm available if he by chance he sees this and he wants to reach out to me. That is no problem. My email address is jcameronofficial@gmail.com. Anyone else want to reach out, that's fine. I do not do like counseling or anything like that. I am done. I am free from all of that. You understand what I'm saying? I don't do the system anymore. I'll speak to, this brother here because I've extended this, but I'm done with that. I am so free, and I live a life of freedom. You can go to my YouTube channel and see everything, the freedom that has come since I have broken free from it, and feel no guilt, no shame, still lead people. People still watch every move I make. And so enjoying it and determined not to waste these years caught up in systems that are not designed for my benefit or really the benefit of anyone else. So anyway, that's the deal. Listen, take care, be safe. Listen, be sure to subscribe to Maximum Impact with Jay Cameron on YouTube. If you're watching this on Facebook, please be sure to follow and share. If you're on Facebook, hop over to YouTube and subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to hop over to catch me on Facebook and IG at Jay Cameron Official. That's where you can find me on TikTok as well. We have a lot of fun, break a lot of good stuff down, tell the absolute truth, because we want our people, and that's anyone, any ethnicity, we want us to be well. And if you dare, come on, join me on the continent of Africa, and you can see right there behind me, MaximumImpactTravel.com. You can get the details. We have trips to Ghana, Egypt, Tanzania, Nigeria, South Africa, all on the way. And last but not least, be sure to pick up your copies of the Adventures of Darren and Destiny children's book series as I feature their adventures through the continent of Africa. All right, everybody. Hope this is beneficial. Take care. Be safe until next time.
Open up your eyes and see all the fun and I'm gonna go climb Kilimanjaro.
When I went to Ghana, I knew that there was something missing.
Why'd you go to Ghana? What started the whole?
What started the whole thing was curiosity. And I did the ancestry, DNA, then I did African ancestry. Then when I was doing the whole Uber experiment, I was meeting all these people from Africa. And there was this one young lady from Ethiopia, and then she told me, oh, this Ethiopia is this great place, you need to go. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, whatever, okay, I'm gonna go one day on my bucket list. But then I did the ancestry, and this whole piece about Africa kept coming up in my mind. And then I just decided to do it. I said, I'm gonna stop waiting around, I'm gonna do it. From there, went to Ghana, and the first thing that hit me is that, wait a minute, there's something I wasn't told. Just had lunch, and we are getting ready to start this journey. We're getting a lot more footage along the way, so stay tuned.
So we made it to the top after the rock scramble. Life above the clouds is completely different. Behind me is the summit. We're on our way. We are in a cloud. That's what's happening.
I'm dressed like a handmaid.
This is literally like from another planet.
Wakaribishwa Kilimanjaro, hakuna matata.